I'm Maya Sharfi, and I founded the Creative Somerville Series to be a place in which people with different backgrounds come together to talk about their real stories, and so that we get to take a look under the hood at different creatives and entrepreneurs within Somerville's actual lives, the good, the bad, and the wonderful. Before I introduce our next speaker, I want to let you know about our next talk, which is going to be with Justin King of City Awake, Boston Social Impact Festival, so hopefully you'll join us for that. And I also want to do a quick thank you to Aeronaut for hosting us, to Somerville Local First, and after the talk, we're going to head over to the tap room and get a chance to meet each other. Sorry. So I'm going to introduce Alberto Cabre in just a second, but before I do that, quick detail. If anybody has parked out in the lot, you will be towed, so you want to move your car. But with that, I'm really excited that we have Alberto Cabre here of Casa B, which is a restaurant in Somerville known for its Latin American food and ambiance. Alberto grew up in Puerto Rico and then moved here for a master's degree in architecture at MIT in 1994, and then went on to get a culinary arts degree from the Cambridge School of Culinary Arts. He started playing around with food with his wife and business partner, Angelina Djokovic, and then in 2011 founded Casa B, his restaurant. So with that, I'm going to turn it over. Alberto's going to give us a little bit of a glimpse inside his life and his work, and then we're going to do a curated Q&A for a little bit so you can get a little bit of a sense of his story in a deeper dive way, and then we'll do audience questions. All right, thanks.
6 years ago, I was selected for Top Chef, but the story continued, and And 4 years ago, we opened Casa B, finally the dream that I had and still open. But my life is a parallel process between two careers. I'm a chef. I still practice architecture. I'm an adjunct professor at Wentworth University. So I see a very good parallel process between these two professions. Both of them create social interaction. Food create a forum for talking about and create social interaction. Architecture builds spaces for social interaction. It's a creative process. Both are a completely creative process. This is, breakfast for my kid long time ago. It's about precision. Food is about precision. Architecture is about precision. It's about a discipline. It's the discipline of architecture. It's the discipline that every single dish that comes out of your kitchen is exactly the same. It's about building structures. I build structure with my food. Architecture builds structure. You have to create those spaces. Create containment. I can create containment with food. I can create containment with materials. It's the process of making. You're making something through architecture. You're making something through food. You can shape meat the same way that I can shape urban design, urban spaces, buildings, etc. It's materiality. All about architecture is about materiality. How you combine materials is the same way how you can combine textures and flavors in the dish. It's about the process. Everything has a process from the beginning to the end. And that process cannot skip steps because at the end, you will not have a product. And that product has to be the same always. You build your style. In architecture, as an architect, you build your style, you build what you are as an architect. As a chef, you build what you are as a chef. You create the setting. You need to create a setting in a restaurant the same way that architecture creates setting for people to live in. Create environments. And all is about inspiration. You can have inspirations through walls, ceilings, floors, living experiences, or you can have inspiration about what are the products that are on the market the next day. So 4 years ago, we opened Casa B. is a small Latin American restaurant in Union Square. Uh, Basically, it's what I am as a chef, what I am as a person. And it was a great experience to do it because in that project we can do both things. We did architecture and we did the restaurant as a food. We built the whole experience. We use what we call Casa Bobonis as the basic or our tasting kitchen. And if you go to Casa B and people that went to Casa Bobonis and now go to Casa B see that the same, there is very similar. The colors of my kitchen is the same color of the kitchen that is in Casa B. The color of my living room is the same color of the living room that is in Casa B. So there is a completely big learning experience. So we did design from drawings, construction, to the final space. And one thing that is very rewarding, you open the doors, we opened the doors in 2012, and you have a dream, and you have an idea behind it. And you open the door, you don't know how people are going to receive that idea, and those dreams are going to come through. But when you get the reviewers at the end of the day and talk about how they see Casa B and they connect the two, they connect architecture, they connect the style, and they connect what we are, is very fulfilling. That happened at the beginning with Deborah first, and then with Corby Coomer with the Boston Magazine. And this is a sample of the food that we produce at Casa B. So this is in 10 minutes what I am as a person.
Okay, so we got a chance to look a little bit at what you do. So now we want to know a little bit about who you are. So can you take us back, possibly even to childhood, and let us know how did you get to be doing what you're doing today? What is it that led you here? What were the early inspirations?
Well, what bring me here is basically going back to childhood, is going back to my grandfather. My grandfather was a person that taught me not how to cook, but how to see food as part of a living and social environment. He brought me to Spain, really. He was a passionate about being in Spain. And I went with him a lot of time, every summer. That was my camp. So he brought me what food in a different culture is understandable, and he made me who I am. It's like if you look at who I am and you look at my grandfather, it's like we both see food very strongly. So I start cooking. This is the whole story behind the. I started cooking since I was a little boy. I was probably 4.5, 5 years. My mother worked as a social worker, and she was traveling around the island. And I loved to cook, so I stayed with my great-grandparents at that time. And I didn't want to eat what they cooked for me. So one day I went upstairs where my grandparents live, and I started cooking, and I make chicken with rice. And that was the first thing that I did when I probably was 4.5, 5 years old. And I remember that. And since that, I started cooking. But I never saw it as a profession. My family from the academia, so I always see it that I needed to go to the academia. I needed to be something in the academia. So for me, going to university was an important thing. And so cooking was not an option, was basically a social form of expression, but not an education. And stay there. I went, I did all my academia, I did Master of Architecture, and now I'm cooking.
All right, so walk us through how that transition happened for you psychologically. And it's possible that Angelina was part of that transition, I don't know. So yeah, tell us that story.
The story is a little bit of funny in a way. It's like, we are both architects. You know how architecture is like a roller coaster? You know, the economy is good and the economy goes down, and the economy is good and the economy goes down. So the whole story is a little bit of push by what the economy have needed to reinvent ourselves in a little bit. You know, it's like when the economy went down, my wife got laid off, and we needed to say what to do, how we're going to survive. We only have, I still working as an architect, probably already 80% salary, 20% salary cut, and we needed to figure out what to do. I have been talking about this underground restaurant idea for a while, and my wife was like, that's a crazy idea. We're not going to bring anyone here. Who's going to come to eat to our house? So one day she wake up and she say, you know what, let's do it. Let's do it. You have this crazy idea, let's do it. We start that idea with 45 emails that we have. 2 years later, we have 500 emails in our mailing list. And so at that point, I was working as an architect, doing the underground restaurant, working in Wentworth as an adjunct professor, and then I got laid off. And that was probably the point that we say, okay, now what? So we were at that point probably 38, 39, I was probably at that. I was like, if I don't do anything before I'm 40, I'm not going to do it, So we took the energy and we put our business plan together. We talked to family, friends that support us, and we opened the restaurant.
Okay, so walk us through maybe piece by piece. How did you, I know there may be folks out here who have done their own culinary things. Has anyone out here had pop-ups or underground restaurants or anything of your own? Okay, well, so I know somebody who has. So walk us through what that first one was like and what you had to do and what surprised you and what were the highs and what were the lows. And that was Casa Babones, right? So Casa Babones was the in-house underground restaurant kind of test kitchen that laid the groundwork for Casa B. So tell us about the first time you ran it and what you had to do, the ups and the downs.
So Casa Babones, so we decided that we were going to do it. We did a very quick website. At that point, iWeb was the in thing, so we used iWeb to do it. We put a menu together for the couple. I think there was the first week, the first time. We sent that email, and then we got the response, and people were coming. And we're like, okay, people are coming. It was in the summer. We didn't have tables. We didn't have chairs. We didn't have silverware. So we're like, okay, let's go to IKEA. We went to IKEA, and we spent $500 in buying tables, chairs, silverware, plates, and everything. We came back, put everything together. That's the picture of the backyard that you see in the presentation. And people start coming in. And then, it's an underground restaurant. So it's a suggested donation. We suggest a donation. We don't get paid. It's like we suggest something, just put it. So I remember that night, we have to make at least the $500 that we spent on the tables. So my wife is with the bucket, and she didn't know where to put the bucket so people can put the donation. And we were like, okay, what to do? People are going to put the donation or not, so people have the meal, enjoy it. And at the end of the night, we counted, and we made the 500. We made the money that we spent in the food, and people were happy. So, okay, we start. We did it. With the first time, we basically break even the entire night. And we start putting it again. Emails now was probably going to 60 people. People were sending us requests, can you add us to your mailing list? We start adding the people, putting like menus for like 3 or 4 sessions, and then or nights, and then people start coming 1 year. And then we start getting a little bit scared because at that point, we didn't know exactly who was coming. To get in the second year, we didn't know was a friend of a friend of a friend or family. So we didn't know. We were already scared. What happened if the health department show up? Or what happened, it's like, this is, all this stuff. And you're like, and we had 3 kids at that point. And it's like, you don't know who's coming to your house. So that's where the point that we start like, okay, this is time to make it a real business.
All right, so for those of us who have never started a restaurant before, what did you do next? You can cry, but please tell us the story.
Well, for those of you that haven't opened a restaurant or haven't opened a business, first thing is to do your business plan. When we started, we didn't know how to put the business plan together. So we spent basically around 3 months between the two of us reading and trying to put the business plan together. And then figured out. We know restaurants is one of the most difficult business to find financials. So basically you have to find equity investors. So we did a whole package that we sent to 45 friends and family and to try to get the money out of that. Then before that, you have to, where you're going to put the restaurant, who's going to be your social economical mix that is going to be, what is your restaurant idea, what is the menu that you're going to build in that restaurant. So we start first, where to build it, where to do it. So we knew that we wanted to do it in Somerville. We live in Somerville. Our kid goes to Somerville school, so we knew that we wanted to do something in the Somerville community. So we went to Davis Square, we went to Union Square, we found stuff on Porterhouse Square, but finally we went back to Union Square. We knew that Union Square was the up-and-coming square of the city. And we went there and said, there is nothing, Alberto. Angie was like, Alberto, there is no space in here. Until one day, Joe Grafton, I met Joe Grafton, and he said, hey, Henry Patterson has a space. Go and see it. And we went there and said, it's too small. It's only 500 square feet on the first floor. But then we went to the basement. And as an architect, oh, I can do this. So that's where the whole idea of an underground restaurant, then the whole idea of having a tapas bar at the top, an underground restaurant, that was the whole idea. The whole idea is that we were going to have a 5-course meal restaurant at the bottom representing Casa Boboni's and having a tapas bar at the top. That didn't work for so long. That was probably like 1 week, and we have to say, we have to change the menu, and the dinner have to become tapas, and the whole restaurant have to become that, because was not what people were coming to see us. Then the whole of opening the restaurant, after finding the financial, you find the financial, you're all set, is going through the city and getting all the permits, all, building permits, health department permits, et cetera. Like zoning, we didn't know if we changed the facade, just the glass. We have to go through the whole zoning board to change that, to go to, what's like 3 months process just to change the door from one side to the other one. We're not changing the structure, we're just changing the door, so.
So what was the hardest part of that phase, and then what was the most exhilarating part of that phase?
The most harder part is to find the money, and still be the most harder part, I think, that any business will have, is just to have the, can you hear me now? So the harder part is just to find the money, to get the investor, to find the money to finance your project. In that phase, the easy part for us was the architecture. It was easy for us to do that part. It's like that was what we were accustomed to do. The harder part is doing the whole process, realizing the architecture is done, and you have to open the door. And now what? We open the door and we have customers. And we opened the door on December 15, 2011. We worked for until December 31st. We closed on January 1st, and I got sick. And we have to close the restaurant for 2 weeks. So not having employees that can support you is another problem. So then we open again, and going from 25 people per night to 50 to 110 in less than 3 weeks, that is another challenge.
So, okay, so I want to hear a little bit about those days, but before we go there, tell us about being your own client, right, in architecture. Had you, A, ever been your own client before, and B, did you learn something different about architecture as a result of that experience? And if you can tell us a little bit about the highlights, some of the spatial decisions you made, the architecture decisions you made. I'm revealing my inner landscape architect. The design decisions you made and why you think they make Casa B special as part of it, that would be great.
Being our own clients is hard. Because, you know, it's good to have your client and you spend their money, but spending your own money, that is the problem. You know, where to cut. It's like, you know, architects, you have a good taste. So how to make this look good the cheapest way is a challenge, because it's like, I don't want to do that in gypsum board, I want to do that in a wood paneling, but we cannot afford the wood paneling. But if you have a client, you're like, you should have the wood paneling, and like, but no, I don't have the money. So we have that experience before. We renovate our kitchen or our first floor, so we had that a little bit of that experience. The other one is like two architects married to each other, having to, you know, design and build. Thank God we have very good similar taste, and don't look at me. No, so we can, you know, agree a lot. There are some disagreements, but the harder part of the design was basically when we took the space and say, okay, we're going to build it downstairs. It's like, oh, we need to do something in the downstairs so people will want to go downstairs to the basement of the restaurant, and having a restaurant in a basement. And we're like, oh, people are not going to come here. The basement, they would love to be upstairs, the light, the street. Well, we have now the opposite problem. People want to be downstairs and they don't want to be upstairs. We did a good job designing the downstairs, but the people don't want to sit on the upstairs space.
Yeah, so walk us through the design of it a little bit and some of the things that you think make it special and differentiate it on the design front.
Who have been in Casa B? What do you remember from Casa B? So, so that's exactly, you know, it's like, if I think that the decision of putting a lot of money on building the green wall at the beginning, was basically what has made us Casa B. You can go in a snowy day to Casa B and don't feel that you are in Somerville, Massachusetts, that you're in the Caribbean, in any place that, in a warm weather. The feeling that it's a very homey kind of space is very, you know, you have the living room, you have a small bar, you have the kitchen bar with the love seat, the green wall, so make everything very romantic and special. All the candles and dim lights, indirect lights. I think that's what makes the space.
All right, so we're heading back to those first few days of opening. Looking back, if you could have given yourself advice on what to do differently, what would you have told the Alberto in 2011 when he was opening Casa B?
What I would do different? I think that at that point you can, you know, when you are in that process, you make some decisions and you have to run with those decisions. You know, you are dealing with finishing, don't having more capital to finish the project, trying to open, trying to make it work. So, you know, it's hard not to make the decision, to say I make a wrong decision at that point. I would have a little bit more time between construction and opening, just to, okay, let's prepare, let's have all the employees in place before we open. But that's impossible. No one will want to wait for you for 2.5 months, 3 months before you open a restaurant waiting for you to give you a job. It's like they will find another job. So.
All right, so what does a typical day look like for you?
Typical day for me, now or before? Before, basically I was running around every single day to different marketplaces to buy stuff and organizing stuff. After 4 years, we had been a little bit more organized, and I only do shopping twice a week. But my day goes from going to buying, to running to the architecture, to teach, to come back to the restaurant, to run the entire night service, go back home and start the day again. You know, it's like that's what it is. It's like it's a very time-consuming business. Doesn't matter that you're an architect or you're a restaurateur. I don't think that both professions need your time in there. You know, if you're an architect, you have your own project, you have to design, you have deadlines. The only thing that in architecture, your deadlines are deadlines, and then the next day you can rest. In the restaurant business, you have deadlines every single day.
So when you think about that moment when you got, first your wife got laid off, then you got laid off, do you think you would have done it if not for that moment?
I don't think that I will regret not doing what I have done. You know, it's a tricky question, because it's a question that if you asked me last year during the winter storm, I will say, sure, what I'm doing here. There is, we have, but it's very satisfying to do what I do, or what we do in the restaurant. It's not only my work; it's the work of a team that we're there that make that special. I don't think that I will regret. I don't regret to do it. There are some days, yeah, but we keep going. Have been 4 years. Restaurant failed in the first 9 months, so.
Yeah. So tell us about a moment running the restaurant where you felt like it was all coming together.
All coming together? You know what? It is. It is what it is. The industry, it is what it is. It's like it's a very different industry than the professional industry. You really don't know what is going to be the next day. You can feel that everything is going to run perfectly, and the days that you think that everything is going to be run perfectly is the day that things are going to change. Change because someone texts you that is not coming to work because doesn't feel like coming to work, or change because you cannot find the product that you need to find to finish that dish, or the snowstorm came and you don't have any customers. So that's what it is. It's like.
And are you creatively fulfilled by what you're doing now?
Yes, I think so. I think that you never fulfill. I think that as an architect or as a chef, you always are investigating beyond that. There is always this creative process that you challenge yourself more and more. It's like, did I design that house right, or should I do something better? Or did I put the circulation in the right place? Or did I use the right material for the siding of the house? Or should it be the other wood tone or whatever? The same way is in the food. It's like, did I put enough? Did I change that from pistachio to almonds and the texture? Should I crumble the pistachio? Should I put it holes? It's always this questioning. And I think that a designer, that's what a designer is. Perfection is never there. You always are seeking for more perfection.
All right, so I want to have some questions from the audience right now, and I want to introduce everybody to Lindsay Pike, who is our volunteer coordinator, who's going to help manage this and Yeah, but so do we have any questions out there from the audience? And Alberto, if you could repeat the questions, that would be great.
So we can start by taking any questions from the audience. If anyone...
Louder. Yeah, so what inspired my dishes, what inspired my food creations? A lot of the dishes are, I call it reinterpretation of very traditional dishes. For example, I don't know if you have, one of our signature dishes is the pot roast with yuca gnocchis at the restaurant. I grew up eating pot roast, carne mechada, as we eat it in Puerto Rico, but it's not served, it's not done that way. It's a piece of meat stuffed. That's what means carne mechada is stuffed meat. I cannot serve that as a tapas. So I decided that the only way to do it was I can deconstruct. So I take the stuffing out, and that's what becomes the sauce, and I chop it. We don't have potato gnocchis. That's not part of but it's part of my training as an Italian chef. So I use yuca gnocchis and combine it just to create some rice because the pot roast will go with rice. It's just to do it with another type of carbohydrate that will connect together. So that's the thing that I do. Is like the other day I did nachos. Say we don't have corn tortilla as part of the Latin American plate, but I use plantain chips as our nachos. So it's that kind of reinterpretation. Oh, I feel that that's what I'm doing. I'm creating a dish that's in the same process that I create architecture. Like for me, the sauces and the textures of the food are exactly the paint and the beams and the roof and the textures. So I'm creating three-dimensional elements in food all the time. I think if you see the plate that I put together, they are like a small architecture or small. There's all about stacking or texture change or color change. That's a really good question. All the time I'm talking about my students and I'm talking about art and food with them. It's like they are designing and they start adding elements to the architectural project that they don't belong to the architectural concept. And I say, hey, that looks like the frosting of the cake. It's not part of the structure. It's not part of your main idea. Or you are just applying that texture to the project and there is no meaning behind it. So there's no, imagine that you are putting all these ingredients together to cook a pie and the pie have to come out tasting good, but if you put all those ingredients, red, blue, and stuff, and it's not together, it's not going to go. So a lot of my criticism to them, the food is coming to them. So and when I go to the restaurant, then I start talking about architecture to them. I think that all the time you learn from what you already produce. So if you design something, another project, you look at what you did and try to make it better. So you're always building in that creative process, you're building some foundations and some stuff that you will never repeat or something that you will try it in a different way to make it better. And I think in food, I do the same thing. It's like sometimes I create the dish this year, and you go to the restaurant the next year, and will not be exactly the same. Will be some kind of twist just to improve it or change it because I didn't like the texture of the meat and that dish or whatever. You know, we have been living in the city for 12 years already, and the city have changed a lot. In the 4 years that we have been in Union Square, you can see a lot of changes. I think that we will see faster changes if the green line will be there, or we get the green line. But there are big changes. There is a whole redevelopment of the area. I am a little bit scared during the redevelopment how it's going to affect the business going in during the redevelopment, because it's a lot of construction that is going to go around the neighborhood. So that's one of the things that, you know, the city is looking at, how to be sure that the business doesn't get affected with it. But it is the new center. It's very different when you look at the Davis Square versus Union Square, and you see how the two squares are very different, and you see how it's progressing Union Square. You see that the city understands how the move the socio-economical situation of the square.
Well, thank you so much for coming out. Before we end, I'd just like to give a shout out to our volunteers here. I'm Lindsay. Maya was your host tonight. We have Shoshi with us over here. Jean was snapping your photo. We have Catherine over here. We're missing Chris. He just had a baby, which is very exciting, and his new fatherly duties have taken him for tonight. And we have Jero, who also is usually with us. After the event, if you guys would like to come and join us in the tap room, we'd like to continue the conversation, and you'll find us at one of the tables in the other room. So thank you so much for coming out, and we hope to see you next month.